It's 10 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order, the mid-month meeting of the Alleghany County Board of Commissioners. At this time, we'd ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Tim Jenkins, please.
Heavenly Father, we come to you again, Lord, to thank you for this opportunity to stand in this special place, Lord, that you've created. Lord, we pray for the commissioners and each one here. Lord, I pray, guide them, Lord, and may they follow your ways in all they do, that your word would be their guidebook and your spirit their leader, and they'd not lean to their own understanding, but lean unto you and acknowledge you in all their ways, that your name be glorified and that you be praised in all that's done. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings you've given this county, the people of this county, and our home. Thank you so much. And Lord, we praise your holy name, for you are worthy. For it is in the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Got a little housekeeping we've got to do first off this morning. We're going to celebrate this a little bit. Everybody join in. Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Michelle. Happy birthday to you.
Little drum roll here.
Speech.
Thank you.
You need a
I'm
speech.
30 again. Thank you.
I couldn't let it pass that aggravation a little bit. First on the business is approval of the agenda. Any changes, Drew? No changes?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to hear a second.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. Motion on the minutes from the work session followed by the regular meeting last first of the month on 2/7. Trust everybody's looked over that. Anybody have any comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor? 5-0. Public comment time. If anybody has any public comment they want to talk about, please feel free to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the comment section. Move on down to presentations board. Veterans Park update. Mr. Derek Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Derek Goddard with Blue Ridge Environmental Consultants. We are a civil engineering consulting firm based in Wilkesboro. I actually live over in Glendale Springs, so I do a fair amount of work in your beautiful county. And we're working very closely with the Soil and Water Conservation District, and that's been our primary contact on this particular project at Veterans Park, but also been working with your town staff and Chairman Osborne as well, and certainly the Soil and Water District staff, Eric Hamilton. We have been able to procure, the good news is, been able to procure $375,000 in grant funds for the restoration of the creek in Veterans Park. If you've walked in Veterans Park anytime lately, you've noticed that the banks are in pretty poor condition. They're eroding. They're lack of riparian buffers, and you're losing property into the creek very, very on a daily basis or after every storm. So we just have been kind of awarded that money, and we're in the early processes of developing a timeline and a schedule. We're aware of the city's project for the sewer line there, and we have a copy of the city's plan for that repair. We don't want our work to slow them down or vice versa, I don't think so, but I don't think it will. I mean, I think their work's pretty straightforward, and we work around them and work with them. So right now, again, we're in the very beginning stages of developing the plans. As you can imagine, when we go in and do this stream restoration, we're talking about sloping the banks back, putting rock structures in the creek, those kind of things. And so there's certainly a lot of environmental permitting to be done. And again, we'll work with the Soil and Water District to procure those permits. We will have to have permits from, obviously, state, federal, U.S. Corps of Engineers. We'll have a floodplain development permit, and so there'll be a whole litany of things we're working on there. Depending upon how that schedule goes with permitting, and sometimes that's difficult to pin that schedule down, we would anticipate that this project would likely be completed in this year. We would like to start on it this summer, to be frank with you. It just depends, again, on how this permitting and design phase goes. I will tell you that we have had communications with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, and they're going to allow us to work in what's normally called the trout spawn moratorium period, because they want to see this project fixed. So that allows us to work further into the fall and to really until Christmas, pending weather. So that's the plan. There'll probably be some coordination, and I think we've met with your recreation staff, some coordination with the recreation staff to make sure we don't have any kind of problems with our construction, overlapping there. And it's my understanding that the recreation staff has been able to find alternative locations for use of facilities while we're under construction. So, but you'll be hearing more from me as we get further. Certainly, as we get fully developed plans, I'll bring those in and work with your staff and through the Soil and Water Conservation District staff to get this implemented. But a big thank you goes to Soil and Water staff, because really this is they've worked hard in procuring this funding, and it's a big feather in their cap to be able to get this for Alleghany County. So I'll ask if you have any questions. I'll be glad to answer them about the project.
Glad to see it moving forward. It's been a little while coming. Glad to see the money's been approved, and can't wait to see the finished product.
Sure.
Anybody got anything else?
Just on the funding, is that adequate funding? Is everything been secured that you think is going to be required for the project?
Sir, it is adequate funding, and we do believe that's sufficient funding. So,
Thank you.
and we've estimated based on what we thought we're going to have some inflation, and so again we feel comfortable with our numbers, so we're good. So,
You guys done a lot of hard work to get all that done, and we certainly appreciate that.
yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank y'all. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. April Ham, Finance Officer. Financial update.
Morning.
Morning.
I need to hand you a report this morning. Okay. I have your monthly financial report. Year-to-date revenues, $14,529,286, which represents about 82% of our approved budget. Year-to-date expenditures, $10,607,111, which represents about 60% of our budget. And then we're about 62.5% into the year of our budget. Bank balance as of this morning, $14,156,966.50. Bank balance as of a year ago, the report I gave the board a year ago, $9,650,668.92. And then at the end of February 2020, the bank balance was $6,558,838.83. Our net financials, when you take into consideration the year-to-date revenue and expenditures, sits at $3,922,175. And then our audited fund balance as of fiscal year 21, $5,685,551. Can I answer any questions about the financial report this morning? If you'll go to the second page, I do have a sales tax update. As of this morning, we have received $581,595.78. This time last year, we had received $635,838.18. So it is still trending down just a little bit.
Anyone have any questions?
Looks good.
It does.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Spicer, Public Works Director.
Mr. Chairman, Board, appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on what's going on through our county. Right now, we're working on the courthouse, the water damage that was caused from the leaky roof. That's being repaired right now. Most of the plaster is already almost completed. The sheetrock has begun. The sheetrock work has begun. So we'll be working in the clerk's office and then they're in the basement of the courthouse to get that accomplished, and then shortly we'll be painting. So that should help have all of those water damaged places repaired and back up to an acceptable level there. Our administration building, we're still lacking just a few things on the earthquake, mainly the flooring. We have made a plan to purchase flooring and have enough flooring to do dispatch and the hallway that has the expansion joint in it. So we're going to make that purchase pretty soon and have that flooring put down as soon as it can come in. That way we can have everything pretty much up to par. We've been working in the area that dispatch will be going. We're moving stuff out. The shredding's been done. Some of the stored materials that's there is being relocated, so we're taking care of that. Probably have that completed this week, so we can begin, and I think Daniel will have some more on the renovation there. At the transfer facility, we've been having some trouble with some blown garbage as far as the wind is concerned, but that's being taken care of and picked up. Those guys out there are doing a fantastic job of keeping that facility looking presentable. We still are in use of a roll-off truck, so we've got that all settled out, and it's being going up and down the road. So far, we've hauled 8.65 tons of recycled material. That's commingle and cardboard. We've also hauled 15.89 tons of scrap, which has resulted in $3,360.49 of money that has come back to the county. So it's paying off a little bit. It takes a long time. You know, that's in a month's time. And it's not always going to be that much, but it's going to be something. So it'll help offset, and we can look at that in different ways. It offsets the service of the truck, or it offsets the cost of taking care of the recycled material. It costs us $45 a ton to have it processed. So, you know, that's going to help offset some of the costs there. The COA, unfortunately, has had a little more damage. The building, I think, has settled just a little bit. There's some minor sheetrock work that needs to be done. We're in the process of getting that taken care of right now. So I think we'll get started on that this week, and it shouldn't take too long. You know, you have to put mud on and let it dry, and then it'll take a little process, but it will be done shortly. Animal control has slowed down just a little bit. I do not have numbers today. We've had some things go on this morning, and I didn't get the numbers for animal control, but I will report those to you next meeting. That way, next mid-month meeting. So, but it has slowed down just a little bit. Matter of fact, our animal control officer was out getting a dog this morning, so we didn't get all that accomplished, and I had a few things at the transfer facility to take care of so we could get our wastewater hauled off. That's about it. I'll answer any questions if y'all have any to ask.
Questions?
At the Veterans Park, the Freedom Display,
Yes.
do you know what the time schedule on that is?
No, sir, I don't. I've not heard anything from them since the weather got cold. I'm expecting to hear back from them pretty soon as far as getting that. It's almost complete. They like just a little bit more, but it's almost complete. But I've not heard anything from them.
You think you could give them a call and see what an
Oh, yeah.
update is?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then on 90 South Main Street, when we start the destruction before we start the construction, I just want to be sure that the town knows that we're going to be doing some work, be close to their sidewalks and their bump arounds. So I just want to be sure that we inform the town and have the construction people work with the town and let them know what's happening as a courtesy.
We will, and I've already talked to some of those guys about that, to let them know that they know that that's going to happen, and we'll continue to keep them in the loop and make sure that they're aware of what's going to happen, what's going on.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Appreciate it, David. Good report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on down to general business, Mr. Morgan Reed, Chief of Law Springs Volunteer Fire Department.
Morning.
Morning.
Y'all hear me? All right. So I'm coming to ask for our contingency fund. We've had a lot of breakdowns. One of our mini pumpers had to have an engine and a transmission replaced, and I got all the invoices for it. It's going to total around just above $28,000, and I think we only had $20,000 budgeted for breakdowns historically. The paper I got, I think our contingency fund is $12,368, I believe. Is that?
Will you have,
I'm just asking for whatever's in there. If it's
whatever your balance is?
I haven't gotten any.
if it's 12,000 or whatever.
So you've got 28,000 in expenses. You budgeted for 20, you're short 8, but you're requesting the 12.
Yeah. So we've had other breakdowns too. This is just the major one.
This is the latest one.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the biggest
I'll
one.
make that motion,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, that we authorize expenditure of the total balance in the reserve funds.
Got a motion here, a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? 5-0.
Anything else I can?
Thank you for everything you
Yes, sir.
do.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Rescue Squad contract. Mr. Carter, County Manager.
Members of the board, I think you're all aware now that there's been some meetings that took place for various reasons. One such reason was to talk about the current agreement with the rescue squad. Chief Jason Long, he's over here at the podium. He's ready to talk as well. But as a lead-in, I think I had forwarded a current agreement and at least in last week's form, the suggested changes. This morning, I just handed out, when I arrived, there were a couple other considerations that were received this morning. And I thought it'd be a good idea if Jason was here to talk about this, kind of give the background as to what the changes are and how they impact and some backing behind that. So if it's okay, I would ask Jason to take over the conversation.
Go right ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like the county manager said, we had a few meetings, and one of them was brought up about the contract. There's a few changes in the contract that our board and body of the squad is like to see change. Highlighted portions of the county manager has all of those change that was requested. However, we had a emergency meeting last night, and this got brought up, and there's a few more additions on it. If you'll look at Section 3, Part B, provide first response for all emergency medical calls and motor vehicle collisions. We would like to see the word all removed because we're not dispatched to all calls. And also in Section 3, we would like to add a D. Also in Section 3, we would like to add no transports to the funeral home. Everything else we discussed.
May I ask a question? Jason, one of your comments this morning was also on 3C, which initially we had been requested to remove that one. But with your comment here, it's talking about medical coverage as needed, and it's got paid per event.
I see that here. We did talk about removing it totally. The medics we talked to last night, they don't have a mind, they don't care to do them. We're just not going to do them for free. It puts the county at risk if we're over there for 10, 12 hours at a time. So they would just like to see, I mean, we could either remove it and work on it as needed or how you see fit, but like football games, anything at the fairgrounds, we are going to be requesting payment for those.
Can I ask a question? When you say kind of puts the county at risk doing it free versus
What it
being
puts it
paid,
at-
what help me understand
Puts
what?
it at risk if our ambulances is tied up at an event. But if the county ambulances, we have 2 paid county staff. If they're out on calls, we're primary backup. But if we're at a football game or fairgrounds event, then there's no coverage. We would have to get a surrounding county to come in, and you're looking at 45-minute response time.
And my question is more towards how would the pay change that, being paid or not being paid? And
It really ain't.
This is not a complaint about the pay
Right.
or not the pay. That's a different question.
It really ain't going to affect the coverage is going to be the same no matter what.
Right, because we've only got a certain number of crews and equipment to be available for the need. Okay.
Anybody else got any questions?
I do.
Michelle?
The, charge ball games,
We don't do it at all.
they don't do it at all.
Mm-mm.
This would just be to help support the rescue squad and their
Okay.
efforts, because your volunteers are basically doing it for free.
And it ain't what it is. When we take our ambulance, the ambulance got to stay running because some of the medications got to stay cool. So forever how long we're out there, that ambulance is sitting there idling.
It's costing
It's
money.
costing fuel.
And just before we get off 3, add the part about the confirmed code 26 to that existing D. Okay.
Other question? John?
Are you receiving payment per event? That's not going to jeopardize your 501c3 status then? Okay.
Personally, I would feel better if somebody on site where we think we need them at those times. And compensation problem, I don't know how talking about.
I think on football games, the school board used to give a donation. I haven't seen that in 2 years I've been there. But I know the last fairground event, Mudsling, that we did receive a donation for that one. And one of the main things that we're seeing is on Section 3D is the emergency ambulance service. We've been getting paged out to a bunch of routine stuff, and we're the only ambulance available. So that's really jeopardizing our citizens of our county if we're just transporting somebody to the hospital because they don't feel good. Really make sure we do only emergency transports only while we're on.
I mean, I'm just looking at the changes that you're looking at today. If I've counted right, I think there's 11. We need to be sure that Heather's looked at this, and we're not looking for an adoption today, are we?
I'll begin the conversation and I'll pass it off to Heather, but yes, for a month now, I think Jason and I have been kind of swapping ideas back and forth.
Okay.
To get to the point today where we're talking about this. Now, this is another one of those agreements, and he's aware of this. This is another one of those agreements that doesn't have the ability to amend it or change it. And we've been through that a couple of times already with other agreements. We've talked about what would likely have to happen in order to entertain a new agreement. I think today is the opportunity to hear and discuss these suggested changes. And to answer your question, Heather has seen these changes, but I'll let her defer on that. But this is the opportunity for the engagement to occur between the governing body and the rescue squad to hear the changes, talk about the changes, and put this into a motion at some point, but not today, because the way that I think this is going to happen in comparison to what we've done in the past, we need to get this thing worked out to where it's right. Then I would think that because there's no ability to amend, we would have to be notified that they're ending their agreement with the adoption of a new and approved agreement between the two bodies. But again, I'll defer to Heather on that.
My only concern, obviously, on seeing, changes was to make sure that we're not going to remove a service that we would have an issue with the state, that we're not providing coverage for something at this point. That's my main concern, So in going through it, that was something that we've been talking about back and forth to be sure that we're not going to delete something that we really should have, like the coverage, that would be not optional, but the coverage that would be a backup to the ambulance service. You know, that was my major concern for the county. And, you know, in looking at what we're changing, you know, there's some things like in D where it says it's dive, search, and recovery. That takes a lot of time for you guys to have certifications and keep those up every single year to have it. And it's not something that, you know, we do on a regular basis. And I think, are there other services, not in the county, but other services, other areas that would be able to cover that if we had a problem?
Right. Alleghany Rescue is not dive certified with the state, so we cannot dive. However, we got New River and Wilkes County, they do have a dive team.
But that's not something that we are required to have.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna need a diver, you got plenty of time to get additional resources here.
So I know you guys do training though for the dive.
Do some, yeah.
Yeah.
It requires 8 divers. We got 4.
So some of the things are just something that they're not going to continue to maintain a certification on, or they don't have a full certification on anyway. So I don't think that that's an issue, and I do understand, you know, the concern where, you know, one of your trucks is running, you know, for an entire event and how that's supposed to be handled. And I mean, obviously there was a concern, I think it was last year, in regards to how we would be able to provide funds, you know, for the rescue squad and the ability and how that would have to work, and the fact that we couldn't do a fire, like the fire tax, that we're not able to do that because they cover the whole county. So that availability is not there in order to do that. So I think you have to relook at what you guys are providing and then how the county is handling that. So I would agree with Michael on this, that it's a starting point to figure out what do we need to update and what needs to change in regards to what they've met about.
What's the feeling of the board to table this, to give them time to really dig in? If there's any more change, have we done?
Conversing for a month, correct?
Jason and I have. And I say a month, it could have been a few days longer, could have been a few days shorter, but it's been a month roughly. What I would think would be considered is if the board understands and is okay with the suggested changes that's been presented, then you provide Heather the opportunity to incorporate this into a new agreement that could be brought back to you at your next meeting, because I believe, if I understood it correctly, timing is an important factor in this. So if we could provide some direction in that fashion to have an agreement before you at your next meeting, we can also provide it to the rescue squad at that point and try to close up all these gaps. I think that will get us a few steps ahead. Jason, you tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think based on the conversation, the discussion, personally, I'd like to see just what he said is, the last changes we got by email this morning is have legal incorporate those. And, I mean, generally, I don't see a problem with what you're asking and the way you're asking. Maybe the compensation, of course, I think that's a budget conversation more so than we need, whether or not we're going to call it out in here, we need to address that. The backup for the events and things. Personally, I think it needs to be combined if everybody's okay with it, and then bring it back and put it on the agenda and go ahead and move forward or tweak it slightly if the board decides to.
Is it a motion to table or a motion to give?
Would the next meeting give you enough time to bring it back? Yeah, table to our next meeting. Motion to table to our.
With the incorporation of the material into a presentable agreement for consideration.
Right.
A motion. Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? None, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Cole Edwards, Parks and Recreation Director. Morning.
If you'll recall, a few weeks ago, we put out an RFP for the Fairgrounds concession stand. Since that time, we have received one bid, and you have that in your packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
Questions or comments?
These the same people from last year or different outfit?
This individual did assist at some events last year, though, but they were not who we had contracted to do the concession stand.
On the monies, is that in the $1,000, is that in the ballpark of what previously has been going on?
The average of 2018 and 2019 was about $1,085 is what the county was compensated. So yeah, it's about in line.
On the board.
And then, I mean, today we just need a motion to accept the bid and then work on a
Is this something
agreement
you'd recommend?
from there. Well, being it was the only one we got, probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Make that. What do we need, a motion or
Need a
second?
motion, yeah.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Bowyer.
I'm here today to request an additional full-time driver due to the inability to find part-time drivers. After having a meeting with Michael in April about driver shortages and having to turn trips down because we didn't have enough drivers, that we thought maybe a full-time driver would help ease that just a little bit. If you look at the numbers from fiscal year 2019 to 2021, you can see that we're down 7,813 trips, 85,157 miles, 3,578 hours, $93,390 in trip revenue, and 5 regularly scheduled drivers. We do have funding availability already in our operating budget by transferring part-time salaries to full-time salaries and using the Alleghany Motion Fund balance if needed.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve the request. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? 5.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next is the Town of Sparta Budget Amendment. April Ham.
I think
Wait a minute.
We have a transportation fund budget.
Excuse me.
While Tiffany's here, we do have a budget amendment for the transportation fund also that will help with the discussion that was just had. She has received $151,607 in CARES funding. That's basically a reimbursement for salaries and other operating expenses, correct? Lost revenues. And lost revenues. So that's what you have before you. We just split it up between fuel, vehicle maintenance, and full-time salaries.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion here's a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0. Carry on.
Then we have it's just the Town of Sparta vehicle tax collection and payments. This was a suggestion from the auditors. We have traditionally posted tax revenue in one line and paid it out of that same general ledger line. By some GASB requirements, we need to actually put that in a separate fund. So what I have before you is separate fund 74. That is for the Town of Sparta payments and some register of deeds collections and payout also in that fund. We just need to budget for the rest of the year on the revenue and the expense side, and this is just the vehicle tax payments.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion here, second.
Second.
Motion, any discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0. Carry on.
And the third one I have is actually from 510 budget, which is the sheriff's department. We have a policy in place that if we can do internal line item transfers between supplies and maintenance or fuel and maintenance. We do that quite a bit. When you get to a $4,000 level, that's why you're seeing a smaller line item transfer. That fund, the 510 Sheriff's Department fund, has gotten to that level. So any transfers that are going to be done from here till the end of this fiscal year, you are going to see. And that's what you have before you. The funds are available coming out of the lines that they have requested.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before you get to the next item, there's actually someone to present for the closed session for that discussion. He is en route. He's not here at the moment, but he's en route. I would ask if there would be a problem in going down to item 9 for the 911 center renovations until he arrives.
Anybody have a problem with that?
No objection, Mr. Chair.
Go on down to 911 center renovation bid. Daniel Roden.
Morning.
Morning.
So, a few weeks ago, we did an RFP for the renovation and construction that's going to take place down the hall here. We opened those bids on Monday the 14th. We got 4 bids in total, which I thought was good. And after a small committee of us kind of got together and reviewed those bids, we decided that any of the folks that placed bids would have been qualified to do the work that was being asked of them. And so in light of that, and I think you guys have all the bids in your packets, it is our recommendation to award that bid to the low bidder, which was Blue Star Construction. And I think there was an addendum. I don't know if you guys got the addendum to his bid.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, a couple of electrical outlets had been left off of there, and for the sake of clarity, we wanted to make sure those were included. And so that's why there was a small uptick in the price. But the total for that bid was $36,648.99. And again, it would be our recommendation that we accept that bid. And I'd like for, I'm asking for y'all's approval.
As directed by General Statute 143, I make a motion that we accept the bid
Correct.
for $36,648 as amended.
Got a motion. Second. Go ahead.
I'm just, we got this $650 difference today, but I'm looking at this deposit required to schedule. What's the deposit for? Is it for material? Does he go out and buy the material?
He's furnishing all the materials for the job, so I have to believe that's what it is. And I think it's pretty standard procedure in the construction world to get a down payment to start with. I don't think that's out of line, so.
On certain jobs, part of the expectation is to get some front money to buy the materials so that they can begin, and then they'll bill incrementally off that based off the invoice.
Any further question? Need a second before we get any further?
I don't want to interrupt a second. I just, when we're talking about the motion, if this is the direction the board wants to go, I would also ask that by accepting the bid, that this will require an agreement to be drawn up, signed by the board and the contractor. I would ask that we also consider having Heather look at that agreement or presenting that agreement at a time convenient for her so that we can not only award it, but also have an agreement established that we can all sign in good faith as well.
Question, Mr. Chair. Since we're at the $36,648 mark, is a performance bond required?
I think Paul, Heather's looking that up. I would ask, so we're going to have a contract with these people, and all the stipulations that we've always put into our contract about legal fees and all that will be in the contract.
This is also involving state funding. So in order to dot our i's and cross our t's, we need an actual agreement to go along with the award.
It's 50.
It is, the performance bond isn't required until it's 50,000.
Right. However, we can stipulate, can we not?
I don't see anything that there's against that. I mean, formally, it wouldn't be required until we reached 50,000, but that would be up to the board to determine for the terms of the contract.
Should have been part of the bid because that is going to be an extra cost.
Only.
I'll modify my motion to include the stipulations of the county manager.
Agreement about be added on for a motion. Did it get a second?
No.
I'll second that. Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you. And just for y'all's information too, the bid opening for the tower construction phase of that project is Friday. So I'll be back next time.
Deal. Thank you.
Go ahead and show it, Mr.
Moving on
Chairman,
down
if
the
it's
agenda.
okay.
Commissioner's Food Drive. Let's think about a date we can all set up down the food line, do a canned food drive for the food closet. We done that last year, and we need to do another two this year. Weather's getting a little warmer. About sometime in March.
I prefer April the way. Remember, March is a rough month, but that's going back half a century.
Let's look at April. About the 7th, 14th, on Thursday.
Ways off.
Do I guess?
Any Tuesday or on the weekend or
What's we do that on?
Fridays?
Friday would be the best day. Most people do their shopping on Friday.
Let's look at Fridays then.
That'd be the 8th to the 15th.
Tater planting day, right?
Looks like the 1st or the 8th or the 22nd.
Let's go for the 8th. How's the 8th sound, everybody?
8
Sounds good.
What's the time?
Last time I got over around 10.
Over there, 3 hours left.
Divided up a little longer. Harper's advertised a little going to be there. Suit everybody?
To be the others for that, we've got two that are still in the work and do an hour, yeah.
Reckon get that on the website and do your success the last time.
Session.
Here now.
You can now enter.
Okay.
Make a motion that we go into closed session to include Chief Deputy Nick Hawks with a break in between for the disbursement and replenishment of bodily fluids.
The most got a request for closed session, General Statute 143-318.11.A/3. Attorney. So we got the motion. We hear a second.
Second.
All in favor? We want to
Break.
step into the side room here. Y'all sit right tight. I'm sorry. Call our meeting back to order. No action taken in closed session. Moving on down. Courthouse Committee update. Commissioner Irvin.
Mr. Chairman, do we
Yeah.
want to take action
Bill Mills.
from
Back up.
the
Position. Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry.
this time? I would make a motion that we present or allow the attorney to present a contract to the jail meal provider for acceptance as we don't a response.
The motion, here a second.
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Line there. Moving on down. Commissioner, Courthouse Committee update, Commissioner Bobby Irvin.
The Courthouse Committee met February the 8th. I was present, John Irwin, County Manager Michael Carter, Public Works Director David Spicer, and David Daniel, and Assistant County Manager Drew Todd. The first item of business was discussion regarding the courthouse study, and John Irwin gave a brief rundown of how we got to where we are, where we were with the renovations and what needed to be done, and especially the recommendations of the judges for our district. The next item we discussed was the R&D architect. They're going to come up with a study of what needs to be done, how it can be done, and I think Michael may have some more. I don't know if you got any additional information today. We'll go ahead and tell us.
Just as a information, Mr. Daniel provided me an email this morning at 9:20. The discussion that day revolved around the ability for R&D to provide two things to the county, which the first was a design and contract administration for the demolition of the addition on 90 South Main and the reconstruction of an entranceway, and the second was a courthouse facility study that Commissioner Irwin just described. This morning, we left that meeting with R&D. They have now given us numbers for those two projects, for their providing of information. For the 90 South Main renovation, demolition, and administration, it's a total of $81,700. That's R&D's fees for that portion. And for the facility study of the courthouse, that is $31,800. So we now have numbers to coincide with those discussions.
Hey, thank you. So basically what Michael's just gone over was the third item of discussion, and that was for the 90 South Main Street destruction and renovation. And as I mentioned earlier, I want to be sure that the town's aware, of any activities that we do. And then another item that we briefly discussed was the memo of understanding for the alternative facility. And there's a what they call the court's continuation of operation, and that lists 3 buildings possibly for court system. One is what I call the old courthouse. Now we have the annex courthouse, the Dalton courthouse, and then it's always been listed as the black building as the third backup. And I'll just read the part of what the state law requires. The parties recognize that it is the county's duty at all times to provide an adequate facility for the operation of the courts. And this is General Statute 7A-302 General Statute 7A-304A and 2. And that's that advanced planning is imperative so that if the courthouse becomes unsuitable for use, an alternate facility will be available in a timely manner without interruption of essential court functions, and that such continuality, it is vital for the safety and the well-being of the citizens of Alleghany County. And then it goes on to, we go to paragraph 1, description of alternative facilities. The alternative facility to be used by the court is the Alleghany County Community Building, which is now our second courthouse, and then the Higgins Center is listed as the third. So at some point, we need to decide what we're going to do, what improvements, if any, are needed at the Black Building. We're in good shape, I think, with the annex. Main thing is it's not designed for a jury trial, but it could be probably, I think, some renovations and some changing around would handle some jury trials. But that's for future discussions. We always need to keep the Black Building in the back of our minds. And with that, if there's any questions, be happy to answer. If not, that concludes the report.
Thank you, Bobby. Michael, have you got more to add, the courthouse committee?
I can certainly expand. I think item 12 is the recommendation. Just as a reminder, the committee that Commissioner Irwin described earlier was the committee that was deemed the interview committee for the firms that submitted their qualifications. We conducted that interview. It was determined through the scoring of all members of that committee that R&D was the top firm for that selection process. We interviewed the representative from R&D, had some very good interaction, discussion, histories that were brought about. The remaining piece was the fee schedule, which I just received this morning and identified earlier. And I believe at this point it is appropriate for the recommendation of the committee to officially bring R&D Architects on as the firm of choice for both the 90 South Main project and the courthouse facility study. And I believe that is up for consideration by the board.
Thank you for the report.
With that being said, I would make that recommendation.
Second.
Motion.
That's a motion.
Motion and a second by John. Any further discussion? Not all in favor?
Just for clarification, the cost for this is coming out of the state budgeted, or is this?
The cost for the 90 South Main is an eligible expenditure under our earthquake funds portion. The courthouse facility study would be a cost coming out of the $2 million allotment from the state for that purpose.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next order of business, Ms. Rita Miller, Tax Administrator.
Afternoon. So the first thing is the consent agenda. I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone may have about that.
Questions, comments?
No questions, Mr. Chair, and we'll make a motion that we accept the actions requested.
Motion, you're a second.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0.
And Commissioner Bobby Irwin had asked at my last meeting what our collection rate was as the same time period last year. And interestingly enough, it's exactly the same, 97.31%. In 2021, we had $526,000 outstanding. And 2022, we had $604,000 outstanding. But that's interesting that it was exactly the same at 97.31. So,
Certainly is.
all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. County manager's comments, Mr. Carter.
And I have a couple this morning. The first one, and I was happy to be a part of the serenading for Commissioner Michelle Luffman earlier today. I don't know if my contribution should be recorded, but I am glad to be a part of that. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
The second item is I wanted to just express a huge thank you and appreciation for the individuals that are assisting us in the interim with our jail meals situation. That includes the team at Alleghany in Motion. That includes the Sheriff's Department, and those are different individuals. And one single individual is actually Ms. Drew Todd, who has also contributed to that. So I'd like to acknowledge those team members and Drew in that area as well. The third one is we received some phone calls and information regarding a meeting with DEQ that will happen tomorrow, I believe at 10:30, out at the Fairgrounds. There seems to be some concerns about some of the drainage or work that's out there, so a group of county employees will be meeting with DEQ on site, weather permitting, I guess, because I think everyone says it's supposed to rain, but we will be meeting with them to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and hopefully at your next meeting we'll have an update as to what that meeting consisted of, what generated interest, etc. So, next one for our budget committee, the time has come for us to determine dates that we will begin meeting, and the only thing that I will suggest is that we begin those dates next week. And humbly, I would ask that when considering those, that Wednesdays are not a portion of that, but any other day, any other of the 4 days, I would recommend we entertain.
We usually do 2 days a week?
Yes, sir.
2 days a week. Make it work any day. It's good to me.
Want to meet on Wednesday?
Well, I asked for Wednesday to be excluded.
Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday?
If we could, if you have a day at least separation, it allows the compilation to go a little better.
Tuesday and
It's me.
Time? 8 o'clock? 8:30. 8:30, okay.
got a feed.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8:30, starting next week. Next item is I received an email from the town manager on Friday, and I'm going to read a portion of it. It identifies that at a previous town council meeting, the town of Sparta is pursuing a potential grant through the USDA for the purpose of plan development to address 4 areas. Those 4 areas are economic development strategic plan, child care availability, a marketing strategy, and community branding. The town is partnering with a group called Atlas Community Studios. And in the application process, they have asked for the county to consider providing a letter of support for this application. So before I submit not just this, but any letter of support, I like to identify the request to the board to see if there's any comments, questions, or feedback. But I will say that if a letter is provided, it has to be received by this Wednesday. So is a short time frame on that as well.
On the board.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I would suggest to the town that they save $26,000, that's going to be their cost, by requesting the files from county manager for authentically Alleghany. I sat on that board, sat in the meetings, and the town was there. It identified everything except for the child care and gave us a plan. That's why we've got the cow and all the redone our emblems and everything else. The county paid $175,000 for that in 2015. It obligated us for $75,000 a year after that. So I think the work's already been done, and we just need to transfer the file, and they can look at it. As far as child care, yes, we need child care here, but is the government's going to start providing child care? That's been a free enterprise system. Someone wanted to set it up, and there was profit there, they did it. Now, if you want us to provide child care, we can. There's openings at Paris Island we could fill all the time. We'll train you children right. That's it.
I've actually sat in on some of these meetings with the Atlas Communication. I have been a member of that through Pioneer Eclipse. And basically the whole backstory behind this is Blue Ridge Electric was able to get a grant to hire this Atlas Communications, and they have been doing meetings for almost a year now to look at creative placemaking is the name that they coin, and they have identified that some really good things. I'm really impressed by it, and child care is one of those, is a need, and housing, because obviously we have a shortage of housing in this county, and also looking at refurbishing some of the older homes, or maybe tearing down some of the older homes and buildings, buying them, and redoing that. But that's all on the town, and they're working on that. But I would like to support this because I think that, they're not asking us for any money. They just want to show that we're a partner in this and that we support, changes in the county, positive changes. So it was good and refreshing to get some outsider perspective from these folks, and they do this all over the country. And they gave us some really great suggestions for making our county a really pleasant place to live and meeting the needs of the citizens. So I would be all in favor of a letter of support.
I would agree with the letter of support. I think it would be all right to support that. It'd be a good thing.
I agree.
Mark?
Anything that, there again, that old saying, if it's good for the town, it's good for the county. If it's good for the county, it's good for the town. I would fully support that.
I support it as well. I think, and I'm sure they'll keep within the spirit of the work that's probably been done in some of these areas to try to help town citizens as much as we can. We're all in the county, so.
Motion for that, or just
I think there's been a recent where we've talked about what what a consensus versus a motion is.
I'd make that a motion. I'd make that a
It's
motion.
not on the agenda.
No?
Can't make a motion on the agenda.
That's correct.
What are you gonna do with the time frame here? I mean, what do we do?
Suppose if the board can't make a motion, suppose the county manager could write one, but he's putting his neck out there as a spokesperson for the board.
I would recommend that the board authorize the county manager on the board's behalf to write a letter in support.
Best option sounds like, so I would go along with that too.
Point of order. It's not on the agenda and it's requiring actions.
I'm not so sure it is an actionable item anyway. And I'm just going based on just the letter that we're in the process of. Determination that was a majority of the board favored it, and it wasn't a actionable item. I think legal response that matter. So I don't.
It'd be the same.
There's requested an action.
But you're just supporting, and there's no money, you're not doing anything. You're just saying, we support your action, you're doing something. We're just think, okay, well, that's nice, and that's gonna help them with their grant, but it's not an action that the board's taking, it's just an opinion that the board has that we say, we think you're doing a good job.
Not exposing ourselves legally in any way by doing this.
Involved in the grant process, the writing, the approval, the, application or anything for it.
What if all 5 commissioners signed the letter of support?
Well, sure, I
And
mean, I
that's no
think that's no issue whatsoever if everybody's supporting it. If this comes up, I think on a more frequent basis, you might end up changing your rules, for something along this line, which would be, if you're not asking for an action and all you're doing is saying that you're going to support something, an action of someone else, then maybe a consensus of the board might be, fine, where it would be something that the board, either from the letterhead, or it doesn't have to be signed by everybody, it just says county commissioners on it. It might be something you would to look into so that it doesn't come up again and you just have your consensus and then it's okay. And, the rules say it's okay for you guys to have it on letterhead or something along those lines, instead of it having to be an all vote, or a vote at all. It's just a consensus of what you'd like to support.
We'll your support, right to support.
Trying to think of how our most recent one was done. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a signature blank for each commissioner, correct?
Yes.
Now, whether or not you signed it or not, that's your ability. But if that is the case, then I would suggest that this one follow the same suit. Because if there's a vote taken and the majority of the vote directs me to do something, that's what I'm going to do. There's no vote taken here. So I could not write a letter on behalf of the Alleghany Board of Commissioners for that. So I would think that a similar approach to the most recent one would do in this instance until we can get some type of correction moving forward.
Put on down, commissioner comments.
I have one more. I know I've said enough, but
Go right
I
ahead.
have one more. This morning, prior to coming into this meeting, I want to identify that I have now signed what is called the SCIF, which is a State Capital Improvement Fund award for the $2 million for Alleghany County. They have approved everything that has been submitted. The $200,000 capital improvement is still out there, but I anticipate that coming in the coming days. So we're well on our way to accomplishing those projects.
Okay, county commissioner comments. Commissioner John.
One of the things that completely amazes me about Alleghany County is how uncoordinated we are. I read in the paper that we are now going to do Music on Main on Saturday night because the Arts Council has taken it over. We are now in competition with the Alleghany Jubilee. Anybody's ever come through town on a Saturday night whenever Alleghany Jubilee is holding forth, those parking spaces are filled up. They are there, they're packed. So now we are going to have an event that is going to take away from Alleghany Jubilee, and we're going to have a bunch of people that are mad because there's no parking spaces on Main Street. And then we add to it that we have drive-ins where we bring in the cars with the loud mufflers that I love, and they're going to be running up and down the daggone street at the same time that we're getting ready for Music on Main. And all of it's going to be supported by the TDA. I think we need to do some coordination, but then again, we look at economic development and everyone gets totally confused because we don't know whether we're going to go to Alleghany County Economic Development Committee, the BDC, which is under contract to do economic development, or the Chamber of Commerce. To make matters worse, I went on to the Alleghany website, I went on the Chamber of Commerce website, all of this weekend just to see if we are advertising the events that are going on right now. Saturday night, we've got NRA, Friends of the NRA. It's a big deal, especially in this area where we do a lot of hunting. You can't find anything unless you go to the NRA website. We had our agricultural meeting. There's a lot of empty seats at the agricultural banquet. We need to get these things out. We say that we want to build up tourism in Alleghany County. We've got to tell people what's going on. Now, there's a request going into the TDA to take funds to work on the kitchen at the fairgrounds. Got to get people into the fairgrounds before we can sell them a hamburger or a hot dog. We need to sit down, we need to really figure out who's going to do what, in my opinion, in this county. Classic example again, here we are, sales tax, 0.25% sales tax. We haven't discussed it. We need to make a determination if we are going to push this or not. It takes time to get it on the ballot. Ballot's going to be here before we know it. For those that are interested, 24th, they will open up for filings for county commissioner again. If I remember correctly, we are going to have that primary. The Republican Party will have a primary since there are, I believe, 4, possibly 5 candidates that will be filing. It is open. If you think that you can have some good ideas, please run. Nothing else. It's the best thing you can do because people will tell you all of your ancestry. They will look into it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the birthday wishes. I really appreciate that. So that was really nice. Just want to say thank you to Drew and the other folks, the sheriff's department who have pitched in to go get these meals. That's a big undertaking. That's 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So thank you for filling that gap. I personally really appreciate that. I do want to say that it seems like COVID cases are going down now, and I'm hoping that everything's going to be open back up and we're going to get back to life as we know it in the past. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby?
Just for the citizens that are concerned about the speed limit on 221 and 93, there's going to be a letter sent to our representatives asking for some additional help. They completed the coyote hunt yesterday. I think the biggest one killed was about 43 pounds or someplace in that range. I look forward to another coyote hunt. I think that would really help the farmers in the county. Somebody snuck in a groundhog, but they were able to recognize the difference between a coyote and a groundhog. And the NRA is having a dinner February 26th, 6 o'clock at the Winter Haven. And I would encourage, if you haven't gotten a ticket, there still may be a few available. Thank you.
Commissioner Mark?
Yeah, couple of items, maybe 3. A little bit concerned over what's causing the downward trend in sales tax. So I want to try to maybe look and think about that, and maybe at a work session or two, just kind of have some thoughts and whatnot to just see if there's kind of what's underlying there, if anything, see if it tells us anything. I want to make a comment publicly on something that we have addressed as a board lately, dealing with the Lions Club. We had discovered that basically that property was in Alleghany Recreation Commission, which was an extension of the county, and through needing to do some upgrades up there, discovered and talked about the liability, which we always try to cover our bases so that we don't expose taxpayers, and that kind of brought up the question of who owned it and kind of the whole history there, and so we tried to fix that and actually basically put something on paper so that we could solidify the future home for the Lions Club in a lease agreement, so it's on paper, and then we've tried to do that, and we're still working on that and still hoping that we can get on the same page with that. But I would just encourage the members of the Lions Club to understand that, you know, we really did that out of trying to help clear up something that we just didn't have a clear understanding in the past, and so that they could have a home for as long as they would need it, and that's all we're trying to do there. So please consider, and if you haven't seen the agreement, look at it. I mean, it's been called a joke and whatnot, and it's not a joke. It's a serious matter, and we take it serious, and we took it serious, and we want to see it through to the end so that, you know, we're all on the same page. We know who's legally responsible for what, and that you have a home, and, you know, we can have a partnership together and work with you. That's all that's for. And the last item is kind of, you know, the filing season opened, then it closed, and that's going to reopen. And all that was over supposedly gerrymandering of the maps. The maps are being currently redrawn, and there was I think a 3-person or a 3-judge panel that was selected to look at the maps whenever they present them. And I think that's actually supposed to be presented today. And you may want to look at it because as it's proposed now, we're going to possibly change our representatives. Probably not Senate, but House could change. And U.S. House is probably going to stay the same as it's proposed right now. But just something you might want to stay abreast of and keep a lookout for, because, I mean, if it's the way it's proposed right now, our House seat would actually be, I think, Alleghany, Ash, and Watauga. So that would potentially open up for a new filing from someone here in the county that may want to look at that House seat as an option. So who knows where it's going to end up when they get into this gerrymandering. It's a he said, she said, and it comes down to a judge or two or three, and but hopefully they'll get it resolved so that we can have a primary at a reasonable time. That's all.
Thank you, Mark. I don't have much to add. Just like to thank the folks that's contributed to the jail meal situation there on a very short notice. Everybody stepped up to the plate and was glad to contribute and make all that work, and that's what the Alleghany County has always been about, doing what it takes to get the job done. And if anybody's got an event coming up, please call the TDA or Alleghany Chamber of Economic Development, and they'll help advertise it, which I'm going to do with the commissioners' food can drive, and let them know what you've got planned and going to be doing, and the dates and so forth. That's all I have, except happy birthday to this little lady.
Thank you.
Yeah, we keep picking at her.
Motion to adjourn.
23rd or 24th?
Finally hit 30.
Anything else, Heather?
Some of us hit it more than once.
30 and holding.
30 and home.
How old will you be when you turn loose? Motion to adjourn.
Nothing further, motion to adjourn. Here's a second. All in favor? Thank you, everybody.